My name is Lucille Sorrentino. I have another name. I'm also introduced as the artist's wife, and I'm proud of that name too. So today we're going to talk about Michael Sorrentino, a guy I knew pretty well, and he knew me very well. Actually, I said I wasn't going to tell this story, but I will. Michael was around the night I was born. He says he remembers the night I was born. Okay, now I'll tell you how that happened. My father and Michael's mother and father were in the theater. And Michael was born in 1931, and he's had almost 10 years on me, so don't start with the numbers, okay? You know I am about age. But anyway, his mother and father were in the theater, and my father was in the theater, and my dad was always the MC. And so look at me, here I am. I guess I take after my dad. Yeah. But anyway, he was on stage, and someone came out on stage for the Saturday night, and they said to my father, "Congratulations," and they said to the audience, "Congratulations, his daughter, his second daughter was born," and that was me. So Michael was in the audience, so he always says, "I know you from the night you were born." You know, it's very cool. Who can say that, right? So anyway, I just want to say a few thank yous before we get started on the show. Well, first of all, Linda Hayes Kelly helped arrange this, and her wonderful staff. Here's the new Mrs. Peterson, brand new, newlywed, yes. Oh, also, I want to thank, here she is. This is Esther Estebacio, who I work with on the committee for the rotating arts, right? And she helped hang along with Sue Gallagher. They did a wonderful job. Did everybody take a look at the art show? How lovely it looks. Beautiful hanging. It's great. So she did a great job. I worked with her. They're going to have a third person coming on the committee, and that is Elsie Russo. So it's going to be a great season, 2023. I also want to thank, I had to borrow a few pictures because all of those don't fit in my living room. Where is? No, I'm looking for Sarah. There you are, Sarah Keefe. My husband did a painting, a portrait of her grandmother in 1978, and Sarah was gracious enough to bring it in. It's hanging on the wall. He only did two portraits, one of Sarah's grandmother, Mrs. Queenie, and one of mine. Mine is home, but we had to show Mrs. Queenie's because I think she's a beautiful lady. Thank you, Sarah. Also, my friend Linda, she has a couple of bare walls because I borrowed some of her paintings. So thank you. Okay, just before we get into this show, does everybody know anything about the rotating art exhibit, which Michael's show was the last one of the season, and it's really amazing that we picked it because Michael and I moved to Scituate and the family 50 years ago. Hard to believe, but in September of 1972 we moved to Scituate. So, and that work hasn't been shown for over 10 years. He passed in 2010, and then we had a retrospective show over in Boston at the Guild of Boston Artists, and just happened to come about that this date came up, and Esther and I talked about it. Said, how about let's do a show about Michael, and here we are. So I'm excited. It's a little bit tough sometimes, you know, but I think you'll enjoy the work. We have wonderful photos. We have wonderful slides, and I will go over everything with you. So let me just check my notes. I'm saying I like biographies, by the way, which is why I thought, okay, we should do something like this. Talk a little bit about the art and the man behind the art. I do know that one of the things about Michael, and artists. Now I know I have a couple of artists in the audience, so I'll watch myself, okay? I won't knock them too much. No, I love artists. Where would we be without our artists? But they're visual, you know, and it's a different prism that they look through. Would you believe I used to play Pictionary with him, and I would win against the artist. But you know why? Because I would do a very quick little stick figure, and he would still be shading in the eyeshadows. And I would say, Michael, the game is over, I won. You know, but the other thing I always played with was Scrabble. And you know, if you've ever played Scrabble, there's those little red squares, and if you get those squares, you get triple points. So I always went for those squares, and he would have a fit because he wanted me to spread out. Why aren't you spreading out? You know, we're not painting, Michael. We're playing a game. But that's the art. That's the art. That's the artist. And I the other day when Esther and Sue Gallagher were hanging the show, they took the show down. They put it back. It looked perfect to me, but not to them. So thank God for artists, and thank God for art. And I will get into the show, okay? So here we go. Here's the man of the hour. His birthday was December 19th. Will be December 19th. And I remember I said he had almost a decade on me. Okay. Oh, wait a second. Even before I get into it, someone has to leave, and he has a wonderful story about Michael and his work and one of my kids, Wayne. Come on up here, Wayne. Wayne told me a cute little story, so I want Wayne to share that first. This is Wayne Ross.
It seems like wherever I go in the world, I run into people from Scituate. And 26 years ago, myself and another man from Scituate were bicycling from Alaska to Chile. And we're bicycling down the California coast. And we stopped at a really high-end art gallery to take a break and go in and take a look around. And while we're in there, the people asked us, "Where are you from?" And we said, "Scituate, Mass." And the curator said, "We have artwork from a man from Scituate, Mass, Michael Sorrentino." So we're like, "Really?" And I said to Spike, the man I was riding with there, his daughter was in your class. And Spike goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, Michelle Sorrentino." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember her." And I won't share the stories of how many keg parties we had at the Sorrentino's house. That's how I remember. And unfortunately, I have another engagement. I have to leave just now. But wish I could stay for the program. So that's my small world story.
And he did share some of those parties at my house, which I never even knew was going on, because we were like 5 flights up, you know? But Michael looked tough, so they all scrambled when he came by. Thank you again, Wayne. The other reason I wanted to do something today about this, besides the art, was that people always ask a lot of questions. Like, for instance, how long did it take you to paint this? And sometimes he would say 30 years. And 30 years, are you kidding, Mike? But you know what? I'm going to address that when I reach one of the paintings here in the program. Other things people would say, they just say, let's see, where is this located? Or where's the location of this painting? And most of them, all of them that you see out there, with the exception of 2, were done when we came to Scituate, which was 50 years ago. So there's a lot of local places. And we used to travel to Chasford, Pennsylvania, because he's a big fan of Andrew Wyeth. And what we did was we'd go right to that location. So I will tell you the locations of where some of these paintings are. One other question that people ask all the time is, how did you pick Scituate? Why did you come to Scituate? Well, it was a gift that we're here in Scituate. But as you know, he did not make his living from painting. You know, years ago, whatever art, his parents felt he would never get to work as an artist. He would probably starve down in Greenwich Village. So he had to get a real job. And that real job was, his uncle was a clothing designer, and so his uncle taught him the mechanics of pattern making, but the creativity was there. So he basically earned a living being a men's clothing designer. And he was working in Florida. We lived in Miami. We lived in a big high-rise. And he got a call from somebody here in Boston, a company called After 6. And they were located in the old chocolate baker factory. So they made formal tuxedos and dress wear. So they called Michael, he came down, he had the interview, he got the job, And they asked him, do you know where you're going to live? And he had no idea. So they said, well, you know, we know someone on First Parish Road. We have a friend that has a house on First Parish Road. You could rent it. So, and it was like 50 years ago, really. This one I remember like 50 years ago. I was in Florida, and he called me. He said, I swear I'll do anything. I'll stop smoking. We gotta go to this, we have to take this house. And I said, why? What's the big deal? Well, it was 200-year-old cape. It was on 4 acres, red clay tennis court, a great big old barn. You can imagine, you could just imagine for an artist who's been looking at flamingos for a few years, coming to New England and being on this, seeing this wonderful house. It was just like heaven on earth. So that's how we moved to Scituate. And I will say to you that that very first morning in the house, when he got up, he went outside. He came back out like a crazy man. He came back in the house. He just said, "Do you realize there's like 100 paintings out there?" And that's New England. You know, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. So I have, I'm going to get started. I have 2 more stories that I want to remember to remind me at the end of the show, having to do with Scituate. But here we go. Okay, this was the very first painting he did. It's called Autumn Leaves, and as I said, we moved in September, so this might have been October. And I will discuss something in a little bit. I just want you to know that he was a purist. There was never white paint on his palette there. The paper, the white that you see is the paper. So he painted into the paper. Amazing. Okay, and this is taken, oh, by the way, the property, this is the property on First Parish Road. Jim Longboard and Rosie Longboard live there. Yeah, and this is called Damon's Hand, and I guess maybe Steve would know, but Damon might have been a builder here. I'm not sure, but anyway, this is the back of the barn, and he was a nut for detail. So here we have Damon's Hand. This is also on the property, and this is behind the barn. When we had 2 kids born one was born in Florida, and then one came here a year and a half. So these kids did not know from winter. So this was like a playland for them. I mean, they didn't know from gloves, and they didn't know from cold, and they didn't know from ducks. I mean, like I said, all we did was see flamingos. So I love this particular painting. I just love I just could go in there and relax. It's so beautiful. This you know too. This, I believe that the Longboards put the gazebo up after we left. So I think, I'm not sure. And I do know that Michael put the flag in, because I don't think they had the flag there. Oh, one of the things that I just want to say, when he passed, his studio was always a mess. I don't know how beautiful paintings like that could come out of that mess, but they did, all right? It just maybe was chaotic or what have you. So when he passed, was my son-in-law who said, "Hey, why don't we put things together?" He said, "Let's put things in a book." The best thing about doing that was that I found these pieces of paper that he had written that inspired him as to why he did that particular painting. So that was a bonus. So I'll read this, like we said, and then we can see the painting, okay? But he said, "Mrs. Rogers willed this wonderful Marshfield property to the Audubon Society. Some time back, I had gained her permission to roam the grounds of the estate. There is a second house behind the main residence, and the story ran that there had been a son, an only son, lost in the war, and that this house was kept fresh and in repair in the hope of his return. One winter's day, finding the gate ajar and remembering the story, I felt a strong need to paint it." And here we have it. And again, you know, the white is amazing how bright it is, and it's a lovely story with this one. Okay, this is on Jacob's Lane. This is it's on 123. This is the back of the carriage shed at the Jacobs Farm in Norwell, now the home, I believe, of the Norwell Historical Society. The scene appeared to be the very essence of New England winter. barn board, skeletal trees against a leaden sky, stone, wall, and snow. I had years ago developed the habit of composing a haiku for each painting. Here we go. Awesome thing a wall, all made of stones, well fitted, welcoming us not. Isn't that true about walls? And here we have, this is Jacob's Lane, and I believe this again is in the back, but now I certainly look at walls differently. You recognize this? Okay. This again, and I'm not going to say which are my favorites or which are not, but I do see this. I look at this one every day, and I look at the ice pond every day. And again, the leaden sky that he talks about, his skies are beautiful. The white's amazing. He just sounded very inspiring to live here in Scituate, or to live in New England. Okay, this, I know which one is this. Okay, there are several still in Norwell, though there once were water tanks. I don't know their purpose, but they're wonderful. Standing in the autumn light, casting long shadows across ochre fields, they seem timeless and evoke a sense of mystery. And for some reason, they always remind me of Don Quixote. Look at this, and I think of that. I think of Don Quixote fighting the windmills. So this is standing over in this is again on 123. You know where this is? Who knows where this is? Gigi, where are you? Gigi, tell us where it is.
I'm assuming the lighthouse.
It's the lighthouse.
Yeah.
He calls it Rebecca, because Rebecca and Abigail, right?
Yeah.
I do believe that he put the quilt in. And I was telling somebody the other day, I can't even draw a stick figure, but what he'd like to do, we'd have a painting. He would bring it down to me, and I'd look at it, and I'd say, oh yeah, that's nice, and I'd walk away. But then I said, what am I, crazy? When I look at the details, the amazing details, so, and one more thing. I've been in touch with somebody who owns 6 of Michael's works. They own two originals and four prints. They're in Delaware. And I was trying to track down some of the work, and I called him, and he read off all the paintings that they had bought, and they all bought very local scenes. So I think it's very nice, even when you move away, to have a touch of Scituate, Okay, remember I talked about white, and he was a purist, and this is what he talks about with white. White is always the challenge to the watercolorist, because it is a negative in the painting process and achieved by not staining the painting surface at all, leaving the pure white of the paper itself. Incredible. This Scituate scene with its varied whites fascinated me, along with the counterpoints of background trees and sky, the expanse of clapboard pierced by the dark windows, which seemed to me always to evoke a sense of mystery. Even though it's white, it is so bright. This one I am in awe of, basically. And I love those skies. We've seen these winter skies so many times here in New England. And the trees, the background, the dark trees on the background. This is a beauty too. Now we get to warmer weather. This is the Whaler. I love this one. I love the grass. I love the wonderful foreground here. And just another thing I wanted to say was the paintings that are out on the wall. Not everyone that you see here is out there, and not everyone that's out there is in the book that we put together. So, but anyway, this is a great little chat. And this is one that he did not do here. This he did from imagination, And when you get out there and you look up real close, there's this little ribbon floating there, this little pink ribbon, and it's almost like, you know, kids were playing there and they left it there. And then the blank wall, I think, is mystery, but I love it. I just love it. So this is, and that's single shell. But this was done in Brooklyn, maybe, or Coney Island. We've been all down the Cape, and these beautiful roses. This one did not get in the book, or did it? No, maybe it did. Okay, but this one again, someone saw it right away. They bought it, and it went to New York somewhere. But I love this one too. Okay, Nantucket Light. He loved his lighthouses. This is in Maine, Hemingway Point. And here we have Marshall Point. So he painted a lot of houses, and I never knew why. And then I found this, and I thought to myself, I've got to think differently about houses now. He says, how do I paint a portrait of that house? A house is generation upon generation of birth, of death, of joy and sorrow, of festivities and parties, holidays, homecomings, all manner of good times and even hard times. A house is all hellos, goodbyes, so glad to see you, so sorry for your loss, please do sit down. A house is family, all young and new, with children playing, laughing, with chickenpox and measles, ballet recitals, braces, broken hearts, with weddings and nearly virgin brides. Come, gone, moved away, aged, grandmother knitting, cat sleeping in the window, the smell of fresh bread, baked bread. A house is green grass, growing, brown earth, snow, green grass, brown earth, snow, green grass. How do I dare attempt a painting of that house? This one I can almost cry. It just gets to me. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere in Scituate, and he called it Queen Anne's Lace. And I recently listed a house in Scituate that was in the same family since 1915. 1915, that's a long time. The house was originally owned by, not originally, it was owned at that time by a Dr. Alexander. He was a Scituate doctor. And when I walked through that house, and they had a waiting room, and the waiting room was adjacent to the doctor's office, I thought, how many people sat in this waiting room? And then the family kept that house, and it just sold recently. I think it was difficult to sell. But I thought, so much went on and must have gone in the house, good and bad, you know, good times and sad times. Anyway, if somebody knows where this house is, I'd love to know. The Glades, okay? I recently, after all these years, the Historical Society, my friend Jean, had, they had this tour of the Glades, and I visited the Glades, and I was truly impressed. It's quite a place. Scituate's beautiful, there's no doubt about it. So I don't know if this was during a storm. I don't even know how he got in there, because I know it's pretty protected. This was that big storm that we had, 77, I think. I like this one. We had, the first people we met when we moved to Scituate was a family called Lawson, and they lived on Maple Street. And it was almost like a Norman Rockwell family, you know what I mean? Don't forget, you come from New York, it's just a different pace. Miami is such a different pace. You come to New England, oh, you relax. Actually, and I'll tell that story later. But anyway, we met this family, and she was so gracious. She invited my daughter to the to become a Girl Scout. What's before the Girl Scout? Bluebirds, right. And she showed me a lot. My friend Pat showed me an awful lot of Scituate and opened up a lot of doors for me too. And this was their house. This was the back of their house. So Michael did a lot of paintings from that house, okay? And recently, I saw one of the paintings. They brought it to an occasion, and there was a big trash bag. It was a big trash barrel, a bright green trash barrel. I could never forgive Michael for putting that in there. But again, he saw it. It had to go in, right? So, but anyway, so there's quite a few paintings done from this location. Anybody know where this is? Where? This is right on the corner. I think they changed things around a little bit. This is the corner of Jericho Road. Yeah. Okay, I'll get into some of. I had to be careful of what I left around the house because he would paint it. Okay, and watch out. But this, believe it or not, was at my sister's attic in Brooklyn, and that's just what he found up in the attic there. That the basket is like a copper basket, and I just can't, the shine on the base there. And I got a kick out of this because that's where he put his signature on that card right there. But you can just get there and chip off that paint. This is lovely. Okay, lotus bowl. I still have that bowl. I still use that bowl. And again, notice the white. Notice the white. Remember I said earlier that when you ask him, how long did it take you to paint this? He'd say, maybe 30 years, okay? Well, we're gonna read this and I'll talk about it in a minute. A very long time ago, I lived in Savannah, Georgia. He was in the military. Remember I said I was 14 when I met him? Well, he was in his 20s at the time. And he was in the military. And he always told me this story. And then I found this paper, and it said, in the course of many sketching trips, and mind you, he didn't take a picture, he just drew a couple of sketches of the countryside. I became friendly with a family of black tenant farmers named Parker. One very hot day, David Parker invited me into his home for lemonade. On the wall, behind the door of the humble common room, hung a bonnet and a shawl, Mrs. Parker's Sunday finery. The eloquence of that image persisted, and in my memory, and nearly 30 years later, I recreated it in my studio and painted. Despite the difference of place and passage of time, I believe it is an accurate, intimate, and poignant portrait of the Parkers. And I think about that, and he'd always say to me, my artist friend, they're always thinking, and it stays in their memory. And he would tell me about the Parkers. And he was in his 20s when he saw this, and he did it 30 years later. So I think it's quite lovely. And when it's out there, and notice the fringe. I mean, very, very detailed. And the ribbon. Oh, if you came to my house this morning, you'd have coffee in that cup. Okay, it's still around. And the creamer is over 100 years old. That's my grandmother's. But like I said, anything that he saw around, if it appealed to him, he would do it. I love if you get up close, this is out there too, you'll see the steam off the coffee cup. And I don't know why he had to use this chip dish. Oh, this one I love, believe it or not. I love this one. Little story around this one. So every time he did a painting, I was there, and he'd bring it down, and I'd look at it, and we'd talk about it, and so forth and so on. Well, this particular time, he was home. I think maybe he had bronchitis or something. I don't know. He was homesick, and I'm out. And he had just finished the rose. He put the rose in, and it just kicked up at him, and he had to show somebody, right? He goes outside, dead of winter, t-shirt, trying to knock on my neighbor who was deaf, didn't hear the door. So I don't know how long he stood out there. Finally, the guy opened the door, and he saw the painting. Well, didn't Michael come down with pneumonia? And I said, call this my pneumonia painting. But it's very dear to my heart. I'm intrigued with this one only because how do you get that glass? I mean, you could just see through that glass. I have this original in my dining room. I dearly love it. It just boggles my mind. Oh, okay, I want to tell you about this. Giclée, you hear the word giclée a lot. Giclée for French means to be sprayed on. And it's a process that's very, very accurate. And the process is where, you have to take paintings, take them out of the original frame, bring them to this company, and they scan the painting, and then they have this process through computerized, where they spray millions and millions of little dots of paint to achieve the exact replica of the painting. Well, it is such a terrific process and such an accurate process, and they put it on museum paper, they last forever. And I wanted people to know that if they do purchase a Giclée print, it's very hard to tell what the original, of course, he put his hand to it, but so what I did was I have two of these out there as you go into the dining room. And one of them is the original, which is mine, and the other is a Giclée print. So I'm not saying which one it is, but people think, oh, I think I know that. I'm not telling you. And I don't have a poker face. Usually I tell. But anyway, it's, you take a look at it and you'll let me know. Okay, this is, we lived on, after we left the Kaplan House, which was on First Parish Road, we moved to Williamsburg Lane, and this was around the corner, Steverman's Farm. You all know Steverman. So this was out there. I love this one too. North River Orchard. Some friends have an orchard above the river. It was the end of harvest time, and we had gone to help them press cider. Strolling through the orchard, I came upon this bushel basket bathed in wonderful quality of light. And I look at this, and I see the light, and I see that. Those apples would make a great pie. The woman this is on Neilgate Street. She did make great pies. And they had, let's see, it's on Neilgate Street let's see, Kennedy's, and then you go right down that road there. And they had like 5 or 6 of the most beautiful apple trees. Beautiful view, too. So we're very good friends with them, and I love this one, too. Okay, again, I think this is Steverman's Farm, I'm not sure, but this is that time of year. Here's yours, Linda. So, this is me. I would scout out places where I thought he would find interesting. And this house is on Clapp Road. And I went in there, and she had quite a few items around. I said, oh, could my husband come back and paint something? She said, oh, sure. She thought it was great. So this was a bedroom called Patchwork. And it's out there also. And I swear, I'm embarrassed, because when I first saw this, I just said, oh, yeah, that's nice. And I walked off. Really and truly, now I look at the detail. I am blown away by it. Even that little doily there on that piece of furniture, tiny, tiny detail. And then just the other day, I noticed a chair. There's a chair in the background. So again, it's the eye that they have. They see things perfectly. They're always seeing things in through a different prism. So I love this one too. Again, leaf rake. It's out there. The original. This is. I think this is also Siemens. Oh. Okay. Here's the scoop. When Michael passed, God forbid the kids would want any of my furniture or my china. No, they only wanted Michael's artwork. Okay, and which is fair, you know. So they all took the artwork. Anyway, no one wanted this one. All right. I wanted this one. Now, not because it says A Quiet Afternoon in Brooklyn, but there's something, you know, art is amazing because you've got to look at something and it either reminds you of something or it touches you. It evokes something in you. First of all, I just want to, those are his matches because he smoked like a crazy man. Those are his matches. But anyway, I always think of, is Edward Hopper who did solitary scenes, and I look at Hopper and I think, or, you know, and I don't know, something about this painting that it just brings some thoughts to my head, and I don't know, maybe it's Brooklyn, but I will tell you about art, because it's in the eyes of the beholder. We were doing a show in Buffalo, one-man show, and as he was going out the door to work, there was a painting that he had done, and he said to me, "We don't have to put this in the show." And he went like this. He kind of broke it in half, and he went out the door, and he said, "You could toss it." And in my mind, I said, "That's what you think." So what did I do? I took those two paintings, and I took them to a gallery, to a frame shop, and I had them framed. Do you know those two paintings were the first two paintings that were sold in the show? So I want to say, art talks to you. You know, and the kid that brought it, believe it or not, she was a student at Buffalo University there. She said she sold her stereo. She just loved it. So, and sometimes when people would buy a painting, I'd say, "What'd they buy?" And he'd say, I said, "Why'd they buy that?" But that's me, you know. So it's so personal and it's such a gift. So anyway, that's my quiet afternoon in Brooklyn. Okay, this one was on the cover of Yankee magazine. And again, this was done at the house on Maple Street, which is no longer there. And this painting, he said that, it was really funny. He did the painting, and we were represented by the Guild of Boston Artists in Newbury Street. And we said, okay, we'll get it over there to them. So we drove into Boston that morning, had breakfast and all that, and the gallery opened at 10 o'clock. We gave it to the gallery owner. By the time we got home at 3 o'clock, the gallery owner called and he said, "Hey," he said, "it's gone." Michael said, "What?" Some man walked in there, and he said to the manager, he said, "I'm going to Saudi Arabia. I hate to go to Saudi Arabia," he said, "but I'm a contractor." And he said, "I need to take something back of New England. I want that painting." And they took it off the wall, and so I hope it got back. You know, I hope it's back from Saudi Arabia. But anyway, I love this one too. I love the leaves on the bottom there. And Yankee took this one. Here we go, right? Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. This, we moved in 72, and this was done in 77. And it was an intriguing place. The window is very intriguing. And you know, I don't know about you, but anytime anybody came, or the kids love that place. People just go in there and shop around, that type of thing. I couldn't get him to take it off the easel because he kept putting more in and more in. And I actually took it off the easel myself, but I do believe that this is his best work. I do. You know, Andrew Wyeth has Christina's World. Michael's got the quarterdeck here. We call it geraniums. And I know that some of you heard the story, but I'll digress for just a minute. I did not want this painting to be sold. When he did it, I said, "No, this has to stay in the family, Michael." And he said, "I agree." But then when Hammer Galleries called on 57th Street, it was a great opportunity, and he said, they want it. I said, "It's not going." Well, anyway, he said, "I'll tell you what, we'll put a ridiculous price on it, and nobody will buy it." I said, "Okay, fair enough." We were wrong. A woman walked in, and the person that walked in there, her company is still in business, it's a big business. And she walked in the door, and she saw it, and she said, "I know that place. I vacation in Scituate. I've got to have that painting." She writes this check, and you know what they say, you cry all the way walking to the bank with them. I did. I cried. I really cried. I didn't want that check. And of course the gallery take their share. But anyway, the second part of this story is, so anyway, she took it and she loved it. Now, about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, my friend Linda calls me and says to me, "Hey, there's an estate sale in Middleborough." And I'm looking at the contents, and it says, "A Michael Sorrentino window." I mean, "Thank you, Mike. Good." I could go get it. I get my checkbook, my daughter and I go, very excited. And before that, I said to my daughter, hey, why don't you check and see whose estate sale that is? Let's make sure. Sure enough, the woman that had bought it had passed. And so that was the woman. I said, they don't want the painting. Great. And anyway, we get to the estate sale. We look through, and sure enough, there was a Michael Sorrentino window, but it was not this one. They kept it. I guess the family wanted it, so. But anyway, the best part is we do have the, I love it. We have the prints. It's fine. But anyway, this is a lovely one. A lot of people have this one. I had to show. I had this in the papers when we first did it, and I know so many people from all over. They call me and say, "I want a piece of Scituate. I'd like that painting." So, anyway, that's the story of geraniums. Here we go. He used to, when he was working in the Far East in Korea, he was there five weeks at a time, and then he'd come home 4 weeks and then go back. It was hard. It was very hard. He writes, I had been in the Far East for several months and had returned home for Christmas. And driving around Scituate, enjoying the snowfall and my first day back, I came across this marvelous doorway. And perhaps because of my absence, the emotional impact was stunning, and fighting back tears, I whispered aloud, I'm home. This is the homecoming. I love this one too. This believe it or not, is on, it's on Common Street. It's a different color. The house is a different color now, so. I think, is that the last one? Very peaceful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And look at that snow. Huh? Yeah, it is. And this is what he writes. It is not sufficient to merely pass. We must count for something. We must strive to leave a mark, a scratch on the surface of the earth. Whether or not we are successful in this is not important. What is important is to strive to do so. It's true, he did strive. So, okay, I think that's the end, but I have two more stories I want to share with you. Okay. Just two, then we're almost done. He, as I said, he loved Scituate so much, and Scituate inspired his work. There's no doubt about that, as you'll see. And, but of course, the designing was how we earned a living and how we supported the family. So we're here in Scituate maybe about 8 years. We're in the other house on Williamsburg Lane. Kids are in school. Everything is great. And doesn't he get a call from the old boss in New York? And they had made a contract with Pierre Cardin, and they needed my husband to step in. Now, it was one of those offers that was hard to refuse, and we talked about it, and he didn't want to go, and we didn't want to sell the house, and he didn't want to disrupt the kids and all that type of thing. So anyway, he decided to take the job, and he would commute. And commute he did, because Riches and Gaffey used to send a big limo on a Monday morning, and they'd take him to Logan, and then on a Friday night, I'd go to Logan and bring him home. But he did that for 11 years. Imagine that. I mean, 11 years. What a sacrifice. But I always like to tell this, it was a sacrifice, but a little bit not, because my mother and my sister got him an apartment 2 doors down. So who do you think cooked for him? And who do you think did his laundry? Right? So, and 3 nights out of the 4 nights that he was in New York, he used to have to watch Jeopardy with my mother, who loved Jeopardy. And she'd call me and say, he's so smart. He knows all the answers. I said, yeah, I know he's smart, right? So, but anyway, what I want to say is that just tells you the kind of guy he was. He was a family man, honest, good sense of humor, good listener, and that was a big sacrifice for him, you know. And the other story I just want to leave you with, because he likes me to tell this story, I know, he heard this one up there. So, okay, so when, fast forward to 2016, when I sold the house on Williamsburg Lane. I said to the kids, you want any of my stuff? Oh no, God forbid, but they all want Michael's paintings. So, okay, so they divvied up the paintings, and my youngest one, Heather, who lives down in Long Island, she took her maybe 4 or 5, and she decorated her whole living room with Michael's painting, okay? So her husband tells me this story, Ben. So anyway, somebody came to visit the house, and they were putting in a rug. My daughter was putting in a rug. And the guy's looking around, and he looks at the paintings, and he said to my son-in-law, these paintings are beautiful, he said. They're just beautiful. And my son-in-law said, thank you very much. You know, they're all original. And the man, his jaw dropped, he said, wait a minute. These are all Andrew Wyeth originals? Oh my God! So I think he loves that story. I